Today is Wednesday, November 16th, and at 7 p.m. we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Item 1.04, approval of the agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Trejo, seconded by Ms. Ewers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item passes. Item 2.01, approval of modification minutes from the November 2nd governing board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Ewers, seconded by Mr. Lemon. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstention. I wasn't present.
Item passes 4-0 with one abstention. Item 3.01, open call to the public. There are no blue cards, so we will skip to item 4.01, celebrate. Dr. Driscoll.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board. Tonight I have a few items to celebrate. We are proud to recognize Mosley Middle School Orchestra and Mariachi Director Victoria Gonzalez Laredo, who was selected to be a diverse String Teachers Professional Development Fellow through the Barnoff Foundation for Advancement of String Education. As part of her fellowship, Victoria attended an immersive summer workshop, met with other string teachers of color, and gained invaluable professional development to support her work as a music educator. We are so thankful to have Victoria in our district and appreciate all that she does for the Mosley School. The National Association of School Psychologists designated November 7th through 11th, 2022 to be the National School Psychology Week with the theme, Together We Shine. In honor of this week, we would like to highlight our 20 school psychologists and 2 psychology interns. School psychologists partnered with families, teachers, school administrators, and other professionals to create a safe, healthy, and supportive learning environment that strengthens connections between home, school, and the community. We are grateful for our TD3 school psychologists and appreciate all that they do. Holdeman Elementary received a $1,000 donation from Peach Jar, our district's digital flyer distribution platform, through the company's first ever Extra Credit Award. Peach Jar recognizes Holdeman Elementary for doing an exceptional job working in partnership with their school community by alerting them of all the resources and opportunities that the school provides. Peach Jar presented a ceremonial check to the school on Monday, and Dr. Shore said he and the Holdeman team are grateful to Peach Jar for their generous donation. While they are still deciding on what the funds will be used for, he knows that they will be directly benefit the Holdeman staff and students. And lastly, I think it was this morning 99.2% votes turned in, so that 0.8 tenths is still out there, but I'm proud to share that the 2022 Tempe Elementary bond election was approved according to the current preliminary results. Our Tempe voters have once again supported our students, staff, and our Tempe Elementary community. With the passage of this bond, TD3 can improve safety measures, purchase new school buses, perform critical maintenance projects, and reimagine classroom and learning environments at Fees Preparatory Middle School, Rover Elementary, Connolly Middle School, and Curry Elementary. The future is bright in Tempe Elementary, and I look forward to the positive impact the passage of this bond will have on our current and future students, staff, and community. Tonight, we will celebrate a school that prides themselves on the level of collaboration, a collaboration that includes their community, parents, students, and staff. Each stakeholder is given a voice and is heard, and as a result, they have created an environment that is full of support, trust, and love. Thank you, Wood Elementary, for your commitment to having those conversations, for allowing the voices of your families to be heard, and for doing everything possible to give your students the best chance for success. For these reasons and many more, it is my honor to share with you that changing the world begins with Wood Elementary.
Changing the world. Change that begins with students. change that begins with community. It begins with parents. It begins with employees. At Tempe Elementary Schools, changing the world begins with me.
Wood is a place filled with love. Kids come every day knowing that this is a place where they can come to and be safe. I know that the little things that we do every day make a huge impact in their lives and that they'll take that with them when they leave Wood.
I think before you have to actually start to teach the child, you need to build a relationship with them so they know that they can trust you and that you are there to support them and help them learn. Students will bring out the best of themselves when they know they're safe and loved in the classroom.
I like the school because I really like the teachers, and my third grade teacher is Mr. Powell. You know, he's my teacher. He's someone I can trust.
It's really important to be in communication with her teachers because then I can know what to work on with her at home and what she's lacking in and may need improvements in. Everyone's been like a family here.
Wood Elementary is a wonderful school. For me, it's all about the student. It's, really creating that relationship with them and even encouraging their parents to be on board with us.
When we think about what's going really well, it's that mentality of the strength of our pack is from all of us coming together. So my philosophy really is we are here. We are an operating, functional, highly performing school because of our community. That's really my focus, that we are here, we exist to make sure our community continues to thrive. And if we don't have their voice to really understand what's happening in our community, we can't really tailor all the great things that we can do for our community to continue to be successful.
I try to create a very positive environment, a very welcoming one. So no matter where you come from, you are in a place where you feel safe.
When there's a positive learning environment, it makes it very easy to teach. And the kids can sense that positivity too.
Just a fun environment, very respectful. You have to be respectful, kind, responsible. I've had super great teachers.
Wood Elementary is like a really fun school. All the teachers here are wonderful.
I know I have a really big responsibility. I am sending those kids to 6th grade, so I really want to make sure when they are in 6th grade, they are ready for more learning and more challenges.
I think what's special about our teachers, our community right now, is their intense drive to get kids excited to come to school every day and to be focused every single day and maximizing every single second we have with them.
Every child at this school has the opportunity and is capable of learning. No exceptions.
I think at the heart of Wood Elementary is definitely that love for students and teaching and learning.
So just the simple fact that I can leave her with her teachers and feel comfortable knowing that she's in safe hands and that nothing's gonna go wrong and that if something does happen, I'm gonna be contacted right away.
So ultimately, I want kids leaving Wood Elementary with a forward-thinking mindset. I would want students knowing that they have the tenacity to be able to do whatever it is that they want to do with their lives.
Every year I want my students to know that the 3rd grade teacher loved them and that their 3rd grade teacher did everything in his power for them to learn. I want them to be good people.
We just have unique students and unique staff that without them, Wood would just not be the same. Together we make something just special.
I see some of the Wood staff. I see Principal Larson and the staff back there. Thank you so much for coming out. Brittany's department and Michael, thank you so much for the video. And with that, that is all I have for Celebrating Excellence this week.
Would you like to introduce your staff, Principal Larson? Item 5.01, approval of consent agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Ewers, seconded by Ms. Trejo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, item passes. Just to highlight a few of our donations, we have Broadmoor and Carminati both receiving activities hosted by the Arizona Cardinals Play. We have Mosley Middle School accepting a donation from the Rack Room for shoes. And I think that's it on this list. As always, a very robust list of generous, oh, did I miss one? I'm sorry. Another Arizona Cardinals for,
Broadmoor, Carminati.
yep, I got those, Broadmoor and Carmen, yep.
Got it, okay.
Okay, and moving on to item 6.01, second review and adoption of proposed changes to governing board policy EE transportation services. May I have a motion to discuss or to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Moved by Ms. Trejo, seconded by Ms. Ewers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item passes. Item 6.02, second review and adoption of proposed changes to governing board policy EEAEA, bus driver requirements, training, and responsibilities. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Trejo, seconded by Ms. Ewers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item passes. Item 6.03, second review and adoption of proposed changes to governing board policy IHA, basic instructional program. May I have a motion to discuss the amendments proposed at last board meeting?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved by Mr. Lemon and seconded by Mr. Mr. Morales to discuss. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item, motion to discuss.
Madam President?
Yeah, do you want to push your microphone?
Thank you, Madam President. I think, like I said at the previous meeting, I felt it was important that we talk about days that are important in our history, and I thought the observation of the insurrection on January 6th was one of the most important issues that our country is struggling with now, just like 9/11 was, and just like the attack on Pearl Harbor. And so it just changes generations of people and their belief, and I thought we ought to include it. I don't think there's any instructional material yet, but I think it's out there. So I went ahead and just, since we're making changes, I put it in there, and I would appreciate support.
Ms. Trejo?
I was not here at the last meeting, but just question for Dr. Driscoll. Did Jordan, our legal review, because I know this is a legislative mandate for that, and I don't know if Jim's amendment is, okay.
Yes, so Jordan did review, and so the verbiage in the verbiage without the January 6th is state mandated language that we need to have per the statute. The addition, because it's an addition to and not subtraction, you can add it in because it's an addition. It's not taken away from the actual law itself. So it's really for you, you guys to make a decision whether that's something you want to add in or not. But in terms of a legal standing, the legal standpoint of it is in this policy. The addition to is more than what the legal statute has, so you can add it in if you wanted to.
So the first thing is my button doesn't work. But the point I wanted to make, I think last time I spoke to the point, I'm fine with it personally, but I believe we might just need a better name because it sounds like a celebration of the event. So I'd be open to conversation and suggestion about that, but I want to hear more from what other board members think.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm completely in support with what Jim said. There's certain things in history that if we don't include them in our education and our everyday thought, then they will be able to repeat themselves. And, you know, I respect Jim a lot because Jim's seen more than I have. He's been through more of these hard days in history. And he's also fought for this country to prevent us from us having more of them. And he's right, January 6th was a big deal, and we're the ones that are able to continue to help our community understand the importance of some things that we don't necessarily want to talk about. The comment that Patrick made is absolutely, it's not a celebration. To come up with a way like, yeah, the Capitol Insurrection Day sounds like, oh, I would love to hear some proposals on what we could call it. And I think that was a great comment. But I am in complete support. And I love that we have Sandra Day O'Connor Civic Celebration Day. And I just think these things are important, and I think it's important for us to not forget. And this is one way of doing that. Thank you.
Ms. Trejo?
Thank you, Madam President. My question is, I was just about to pull it up, but does anybody know how it's worded in the actual policy, in the actual House Bill 2325? Is it called celebration in the actual bill or no? So then maybe that's all, we remove the actual just word celebration and just call it Observance Day, the way it's actually intended in the bill itself. That's a suggestion.
This is an issue for me that I've thought long and hard about as a social studies teacher, former, I guess, social studies teacher. And my mind eventually came around to thinking about teaching world religions and teaching about how Catholicism chooses saints and the process through which they do that. There's usually a 5-year wait for that. It's not mandated, but that's the general practice of it. Very rarely is it not wait, do they not wait 5 years? And the whole reason behind that is so that feelings can calm down and there can be more of an objective view about it. And I've been thinking about why it's taken 21 years for us to have a policy for 9/11 and 16 years since Sandra Day O'Connor died. I do think that there's value in time and giving people perspective and hindsight and calming passions. Dr. Driscoll, I have a question for you about how we teach current events and social studies in our district. Do you know how something like this would be brought up for current events?
You know, it would be at the discretion of the teacher themselves, but I believe in our social studies curriculum, there is some piece for current events and stories, so it really would happen. You know, I kind of think with this is I would say a hot topic because there's different viewpoints on how that day transpired. But I think it's important for our students to know like history. And so I'm kind of torn because I like the time that you have time because then you can get like everybody's viewpoint on it. And there's another policy, I think, that comes up later that kind of talks about teachers not having that authority to just to do that. And I think that kind of comes into play with this as well. I think it's something important that in our history, it's gonna be something that we need to talk about. And I would imagine in the next history books that come out in editions that this day will be talked about because it really is about our democracy and how we're governing. But I think it's really fresh. I think it's really fresh on people's mind. And I think in our community, you would have different viewpoints on that. And I think we would be setting our teachers up for some difficult conversations with parents about how they interpret, because I don't think we have that space of this is when it happened and then here's all the facts that we can't dispute. I think right now there's a dispute of facts, and I think there's currently a hearing at the Capitol that they're doing a hearing on this. And so I think that time away from it, and the more we get back away from the actual event, it would be even better for our teachers and give them that aspect, because that's what I worry, that a teacher might take their own interpretation of that event. And then we would be sitting here with parents upset about a teacher's interpretation of the event, both either way. And I would tell you, we have teachers here in our district that have different views either way on that subject. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
Thank you, Dr. Driscoll. One other thing I wanted to add, I was a fairly young teacher, relatively young, when Constitution Day became a mandated day. And it was so frustrating to me because it's placed, I can't remember exactly the date, but all schools have to cover the Constitution on this one day. And it falls out of order for what you're teaching in American history. And what has happened is it becomes a diluted day, because it all of a sudden is this random day in your scope and sequence that you have to do, and it doesn't get the priority that it should be if we could just place it properly within the curriculum. So my recommendation would actually to be not to put it into policy as a day of observance, but to look at our curriculum for social studies, place it properly in the scope and sequence under like modern democracy or contemporary views on democracy, where we could have children critically think about what that day was and not tell them what that day was, because right now we can't tell anybody what that day was. Everybody has their own opinions about it, and I certainly have strong opinions about it myself. Ms. Ewers.
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Driscoll, that was one of my questions. Do we know right now if there's anything that the district or teachers mentioned on January 6th? And do we have anything in our curriculum that talks about that?
In terms of curriculum, no. In terms of resources, there could be. In terms of current events and National Geographic and stuff like that. But in terms of our own curriculum, which is based on the standards, no, because our standards haven't touched this yet. It's too new.
Okay.
In regard to that.
And then are we talking about kind of all of them right now?
No.
Okay.
Just the one addition.
Okay.
The other two are state, they're mandated, so by statute.
Mr. Morales?
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Lemon, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the goal is like to address it, to talk about it. So I think to Ms. Windsor's point, whether it's added formally within our curriculum to current events, or even widening the subject altogether, because I think in this situation, when we cover states expansion and stuff like that, we can talk more generally about the capital, from when like the British burned the White House all the way to this, and cover it as a core part of democracy. DC is currently fighting for representation at the congressional level. The filibuster stopping that, so you can add that into the entire conversation. So that's something that I think I just want to throw into the conversation, widening the day or the curriculum, whatever we end up doing. And I'm open to revisiting or adding a timestamp if it's passed today for a later implementation, or to allow our staff to actually find the resources and not do our own mini kind of mandate. But it's definitely something that I think that needs to be discussed in some capacity. I've performed like 3 civil disobediences in DC, but they were, nonviolent, and one of them was in the congressional halls, and it was not like this. So I still went through the metal detector. So it's definitely outside the norm of normal civil disobedience.
Mr. Lemon?
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate all the points of view and the discussion on this. I hadn't really thought about the teachers having a different point of view than what I or the board might have, and then without any materials, it'd be very difficult for those teachers. I guess what I see is when we talk about civics education and on Sandra Day O'Connor Day, the celebration, this is part of our civics. It's a process we go through, and I think it needs to be addressed because it's very obvious that the people on January 6th were not aware of what our civics process was. And storming our government buildings is not how we do things in the United States. So anyway, that's why I thought, put it in there. I'd be happy to not include this additional language that I suggested from that, because there's a lot of reasons that it's going to cause us grief. But I think sometimes, school boards got to stand up and let the public know that what's going on in our democracy is probably not healthy. And I'm just very embarrassed by what's happened in the last couple of years. And so anyway, that's where I'm at. But we can withdraw it. We can talk about it later. And from that standpoint, and I know the Arizona School Board Association has done their due diligence on this particular issue and regarding the legislation. And I just know from when I lobbied at the legislature, a lot of times the other lobbyists said, well, don't worry about it, we'll fix it next year. Just get it passed and then we'll tune it up, and it goes on for 3 years. And of course they draw a paycheck for that. And not a lot gets done. And but you got to start something out somewhere. And so that's why I put it in here. So thank you, Madam President.
Ms. Trejo?
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to clarify for the public, because I had a call with Dr. Driscoll and Heather about this, but because one of our descriptions at ASBA policy, this is not ASBA's policy. This is the legislative policy. So the legislature created this policy, and ASBA helps, helps us translate them so we can implement. But I know Jim knows that, but just wanted to clarify for the public.
Mr. Lemon, I appreciate your words and your ability to hear everybody. And I hope you hear that we all feel that it's a very important issue that needs to be addressed. And I would actually like to, and I don't know if this is the proper place to do it, but ask for direction for Dr. Driscoll to make sure that we have something about addressing civics, civil disobedience, the process of being a citizen, and what that means in our current events.
I can work up for you guys that and get you that information so you can see it, and maybe do it in a study session so you can see and ask questions about it. So I can definitely do that at a future meeting.
Thank you very much. I know that we have a huge focus on STEM classes, but to that, we only have so many hours in the day, and if we skip social studies, we tend to have problems as a society. So, all right. So, yes, Mr. Morales.
I was just going to add, since we're directing Dr. Driscoll, if we could include electoral college and filibuster. Some of that might be beyond the scope of middle school, but I think, representative republic versus democracy is a very important point.
Is called civics, isn't it? Yes, okay. So it's not just called history, it's a civics course. So it would be right in line with the scope and sequence for that class, right? All right, so so do we go back to the original one? Okay, may we have a motion to, for the second read of the original policy?
Madam President, I move that we go back to the second read from the original policy that was presented to us by the Arizona School Board Association in response to the legislative mandates.
Very well done.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Lemon, seconded by Ms. Ewers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item passes unanimously. Item 6.04, second review and adoption of proposed changes to governing board policy JICFA hazing. May I have a motion?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Trejo, seconded by Mr. Morales. All in favor? Aye, item passes. Item 6.05, second review and adoption of proposed changes to governing board policy JLDA, school counselors and psychologists. May I have a motion?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Trejo, seconded by Ms. Ewers. All in favor? Aye, item passes. Item 6.06, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of the Arizona Public Service Company easement at Geneva Epps Mosley Middle School.
Madam President, I move approval of this item. I reviewed the documents that were presented to us. They made sense to me, and I think we need to approve this easement.
Moved by Mr. Lemon, seconded by Ms. Trejo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, item passes, and we all thank Mr. Lemon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lemon, we're referring to you.
Item 6.07, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy IJL, library materials selection and adoption. Do any members need a second to look over that again? May we have a motion to discuss?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Trejo and seconded by Ms. Ewers. All in favor? Aye. Dr. Driscoll, we would like to have a conversation about the implementation of this policy. We would like to start with you.
Well, I will tell you, me and a couple employees in our district had a conversation about this policy this morning, and actually talked with Jordan, our legal counsel, about it as well. And so part of this is state statute and changes to the law, and it's really of giving parents the access to review books that are being adopted in the school libraries. Now, the conversation I had, and I guess I'm looking at Eric, I guess I should bring it up here, was we also get donations. So from time to time, people in our community donate books. And normally, I'm the one that signs off on it because it's under $1,000 per our policy. And I want to say it's KCD? It's something like KCD-R. And so what I had reservations about is, like, should that also be included in this policy? Because really, once we accept it, it becomes district property. And so then the district has ownership and we inventory it, and normally 9 times out of 10 it goes into a class library. Well, then that student can go in that class library and grab that book and bring it home, and then we have a parent who might disagree with it and say, hey, you violated the law, because the law says that there is a review period that you have to make it public, and then I think it's like 60 days. You have to do 7 days to tell the public that you're gonna have it. And then after that 7-day period, then it's like a 60-day period, which they could look at the books and stuff like that. And then if you don't have any objection to it, then it can go into your library. And so I think it's more than just library books. I think anytime we accept donations, this is the world according to me, not legally, but I think anytime we would accept a donation, because we make it district property, that it should be subjected to this same lens. Now, I would tell you, our librarians, we've already worked on this and have a great reg in how the process would flow to meet the state statute, and our librarians would be a part of that process. And we have periods, I want to say four different times in our school year where they would review it and then do the steps in the process, like here are a catalog of books that we want, and then we would go through that process. So each quarter there would be a time to do this, and then it'd be 60 days and all that time after. So I'm comfortable with that. It's going to be tedious because really, if I'm looking at this, any book we try to adopt in our library would have to go through this process, and parents would have that. So, but I'm a little nervous about the donation because we literally, I would tell you, on a weekly basis, get donations for books for our schools, and all our schools, people are donating. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, any other questions or comments from board members? Because I have a couple of questions. Ms. Ewers?
I just wanted to make sure that I heard you right, that because I know we're always concentrated at state legislature level in cutting down administrative costs. You feel that this is going to be a higher administrative cost in time for our district, is that correct?
I would tell you it would divert human resources and time to
From
this
the
process.
children
Yeah.
to this, okay.
Yeah, there will be time taken away from what they were doing to do this process. See? Yeah.
Lemon?
Thank you, Madam President. When I was looking at the IJL and the added language, public review period for books and materials purchased after January 2023. So I think I would agree if we buy it, yeah, but if they're given to us, how do you tell a person that's donating something that this is really great, but we're going to embargo it for at least 60 days and probably 3 months before the kids can even see it? Because we got to notify parents that you gave us this thing or this title.
We point them to the state law that says that we have to do it. And there's some, I don't want to say loopholes in it. Like, if you're a neighbor of a teacher and you give them a book and say, here, I donate it, then it's not technically district property because you didn't donate it to the district. What a lot of people like when they donate is they like the receipt that we give them to say, we took this and it has some nominal value, so then they can write it off. And that's where it becomes sticky wicket, that it's kind of it's our property. Our policy says it becomes the property of the district and we inventory it. And so I just know that the 2% of people that are actually going to follow this, they will be the student that gets this book at home, and then their parents will be here at our board meetings saying, like, why didn't you follow this? And I think for consistency, it makes sense if we accept a donation, that we tell the person, because you donated this, there's a state law, and this is our practice of how we do it. So it's just clean, so we don't have this like gray area that's just world according to me. But there are going to be books that we're not going to know. A teacher purchased a book themselves that wasn't purchased by the district. Now, what'll happen is if one of that comes home, we're going to have these conversations, and so we're going to have to educate our staff about books and stuff that they purchase and have in their class libraries, that there is this thing. But I don't think, and Jordan's here, and he would never say I don't think, but I think that's something that we're going to have to talk about and probably get legal guidance in a lot of districts going forward, because what do we do in that situation for a teacher that gets a book and brings it in, and then that goes home? Technically, by the letter of the law, they didn't violate the law because the district did not purchase that book, but that parent's going to come in and say, well, doesn't this? And so we're going to have really great communication of the differences, I believe, which is going to cost time and effort and money for people being outside of their jobs, fielding these questions. And so.
Ms. Ewers, and then Mr. Morales.
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Driscoll, I've had the benefit of experiencing incredible local writers who have come to our schools, written to our schools, allowed our children to come and write to them, and sent them back books as gifts or new, just new books that they want to share with them. And it's pretty exciting that people from around the community want to do that. And we have some majorly talented people in this community. Is this affecting them also, that they will not be able to just, if a student writes to them or they have a new book that they want to send to a particular class or a student, they won't be able to do that? Is that correct?
I don't claim to be a lawyer or practicing, but I think in that case, and so this is full disclosure, I'm not a lawyer practices with this law, but I think if they were giving it to a student, that wasn't purchased by the district, so indeed they could do that. I think this law really is intended for anything that the district is purchasing themselves and saying this is a resource, or some people use the word curriculum, that it has to be vetted by parents and go through this review process of 7 days to notify them that this is a book that we intend to purchase. And then after that 7 days, then there's a 60-day review policy of here's the book so you can review it, touch it. Kind of like when we do curriculum adoptions, we have that window where we have to show it and have it available that the public can inspect it. And then after that, and if any concerns are raised, address those concerns and then go forward. In that case, if a person given it, it's kind of like I said, the teacher whose neighbor gives them a book, that's not really the district. The district didn't purchase that. So, but what I would say is we will have to educate our folks about the materials they're taking, because though a person gave it to you and it goes home, that parent's going to have a question of like, why did my kid receive this book? And we're going to have to educate our community on that. And I imagine there's probably going to be lawsuits and stuff that give more credence and tighten up some of the gray areas I see in this that are out there. So to answer your question, yes, I believe an author who donates a book to an individual student, not to the district. And so I think that would suffice if they give that book. But I think if they donate it to the district and then want us to produce a receipt to say we received it and it has some nominal value, I would propose that we make it go through this process to be consistent.
Mr. Morales?
Ask either to Jordan or Dr. Driscoll. For materials, does that mean anything in a classroom, including things on the walls of classrooms?
President Windsor, Member Morales, I don't believe it would go so far as to materials on the walls. There's actually separate statutes that speak to what individuals are permitted statutorily to put on walls, and then there's some case law about other issues where teachers put things on the walls. But I don't think those would be subject to this type of review and analysis. I think to Dr. Driscoll's point earlier, this is really based on district level purchases or things that are going to become district property. So when you get those mass donations that are coming to the district, those are items that are going to have to go through this process.
Okay. And I think too, with the statute, it says that a child will borrow. So like if it's on the wall, the child wouldn't borrow that to take home. So I think that's another caveat that when I was reading it, it said borrows, child borrows, I think is in there.
Okay, seeing no other questions, I have 2 questions for Dr. Driscoll. Prior to this legislation, do we have a practice in Tempe Elementary to bar access parents to view book collections at any of our schools?
Not that I know of.
Second question is, do we have a practice or policy to bar parents to view list of books their children check out?
Not that I know of.
So thank you very much, Dr. Driscoll. I assume that was the case. And I just want to highlight for the parents who are and community members that are watching that sometimes legislation comes through that really has nothing to do with our district, because we have not had this practice to prevent parents from being involved with seeing what their kids are reading, seeing what our libraries hold. And so while we are required to pass this policy, this is consistent, other than the 60-day period, it's consistent with our practice within the district to allow parent access. In fact, I remember standing in line for vaccinations in a school library with all of us reading the books as we waited our turn, and there was no control over who was looking at the books and what we were looking at. It was just read a book and wait for your turn. So thank you very much for that. May we have a motion for this policy?
Because it's first read, I don't
Oh,
think.
sorry. Okay, no motion, please. All right, item 6.08, discussion and first review of proposed changes to, am I skipping that? Oh, yeah, 609. I know, but we just did 607, right? So we're on 608. 608, discussion and first review, it's both libraries, that's what's confusing, yeah. Discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy, IJNC, resource centers, media centers, and school libraries. May I have a motion? It is, oh, sorry, if to discuss. Do we need? Second. Moved by Ms. Trejo and seconded by Ms. Ewers. Mr. Lemon.
Thank you, Madam President. Being the son of a librarian and a media specialist, where they actually go to school, get a degree or a master's degree and these sort of things. And of course, our teachers go to school, learn how to use these materials. I'm all for having parents involved in our school, but I'm really worried about censorship of the librarian's duties and the teacher's duties to present material. And I'm just concerned about the time that it takes. So when it comes time to approve these policies, I'm going to be a no vote on both of them. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Lemon. Ms. Trejo?
Again, to be clear, these are not our policies. This is a legislative mandate, but I don't understand, I'm going to take this up with ASBA, why they separate it into two separate policies. It says something about superintendent resources there. Do you know about that, Dr. Driscoll?
I think there might be an error. I think this might be the reg, and then the exhibit, but I'll have to check because it reads as it has the R, and then it has the E, and I'm wondering if just the nomenclature, and I could be wrong, so I'll follow up and check. But it almost reads to me like it's the reg for that previous one that you guys were just discussing. But I will check, and then at our next meeting, I can send you what I found.
Okay, see no other questions or comments. Let's move on to item 6.09, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy IMB, teaching about controversial sensitive issues. Any questions or comments? Ms. Trejo?
I mean, just, obviously, again, this is a mandate that is unfortunate that we have all these mandates that are going to take administrative time and create more confusion. And I mean, it is unfortunate that this is what it is, but I don't know what else to say.
Mr. Morales?
Yeah, I would like to agree and piggyback off what Ms. Trejo mentioned. I think this and the last two policies are an attempt at censorship and definitely the beginning of more. Hopefully I'm wrong about these type of bills. But I think that the biggest thing enables parents to sue governmental entities for usurping the fundamental right of parents to direct the upbringing, education, healthcare, and mental health of their children. There seems to be like folks are forgetting down at the legislature that if a parent chooses to bring a child to a public school district, they're entering into the social contract with everyone else and with the school district. So it's unfortunate that it's worded this way because it seems insulting to public education. So I don't know if I can support that personally when we come to a vote next time on this.
Ms. Trejo?
I know this is a difficult task for Dr. Driscoll and our educators because kind of the conversation we were having earlier about having appropriate resources that are aligned and makes it more important that we are, because we certainly don't want educators to be caught in any unfortunate situations as well. So going back to some of the other previous bills, it would be also nice to know if, and I don't want to add any more work to anybody, but it would be good to know relatively how much time spent on those things, because I think knowing the cost, the administrative cost, the cost for educators would be useful, because I think it's important we never put numbers on what this means and the impact of our schools and our districts, but I think it would be important for the taxpayers to know and the legislators to know that when they create mandates, whether well-intentioned or not, it puts a cost and often burden on our districts that we have to pay for, and that's our tax dollars. So I think it would be good to know and have an estimate on how much time/money we are spending on it, since they are not giving us additional funding.
And I think we could probably do meeting minutes and stuff like that, probably could get a time, and then people that are in attendance. To follow up on the previous one that you talked about, we do have a policy IJNC, and so that reg is for that policy. It's the reg and exhibit for that actual policy. So,
I believe Mr. Ella would like to address this.
Yeah, just in speaking and looking at policy IMB that's coming before you, I am not on ASBA's policy services, so I don't know exactly what their reasoning is. I do just want to make clear, I believe, based on the changes they've proposed to IMB is a policy that's already on your books. They are making some minor wording changes, I think, to address what are potential concerns that have been raised based on HB 2161. And I do not disagree that HB 2161's scope allowing for private actions is overly broad and confusing. And it is something that will at some point have to be litigated because it is not clear what it means to usurp the educational rights of the rights of parents to direct the educational upbringing of their children. There are AG opinions that specifically say standardized testing is not usurping the educational rights of parents. There's case law that goes to the point that Member Morales was making, that when you choose to go to a public school, you accept the education that is being provided, the curriculum and the instruction. But I don't know that those cases were decided in light of a law, a Parents' Bill of Rights that speaks in this way. And it's something that certainly the school attorneys in Arizona are monitoring and just kind of waiting to see what happens and comes of it. But in terms of your policy IMB, I just wanted to make clear, we're not considering drastic changes. It's tightening up a few words just to address a concern.
So to be clear, Jordan, we already are in compliance. We do not need to pass this if we already passed.
You have IMB. I think it's a question of, in that second paragraph of IMB, whether the board feels that the change from influence to responsibility and values to education provide meaningful clarity of your policy to that makes sense.
Okay, so I would, if it's already there, I would recommend that's not be redundant and remove it.
Okay, this being first read, we'll have to keep that under consideration for next meeting. Dr. Driscoll.
just so we have clarification, you want us to keep the influence and values, or do you want us to take it out and put the responsibility and education? Because that's like if I read this correctly, that's the major change. It's just literally, instead of influence, to say responsibility, and instead of values, to stay education.
Is HB 2061 from this session or previous session?
That's from this session.
Okay, so then I guess to be safe,
Okay.
then
Okay.
I guess that I get it now.
So I just wanted to make sure that we have the right votes when we give it to you for second read. So yeah, that'll work.
So I think I'm lost. What are we suggesting to keep it in there? Keep
So
it as written or go with the amendments?
These changes were made to reflect this new legislation from HB 2161. So that's why they made the recommended revisions. So while we.
Sorry, retracting the whole, we
Yeah,
want to keep it.
I
Okay.
mean, because 2161 is from this session.
Got it.
I was under the impression that it was a previous one. Then it was just an update.
Got it. All right, Ms. McDaniel, okay? Okay. Item 6.10, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy IMD, school ceremonies and observances.
Motion to discuss?
Ms. Ewers.
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Driscoll, have we had it to where 4th through 6th grade has always had to recite the Declaration of Independence?
So I would say as long as when I was a teacher in 6th grade, and that's why when we say the pledge, I always go, and these truths to be self-evident to all men, because we had to do it when I was a 6th grade teacher. So it's been there for a while. I would say at least almost 20 years.
Just for the record, it wasn't there beyond that, because I didn't have to do it. But that also dates me, so. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Item 6.11, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy JF, student admissions. May I have a motion to discuss? Moved by Ms. Ewers and seconded by Mr. Morales. Ms. Ewers, did you want to speak?
Believe it or not, no.
Madam President, this is a change that I think I can support.
Okay, well, you get to vocalize that on our next meeting. All right. Item 7.01, reports from standing committees. Were there any standing committee meetings?
No, ma'am.
None from either, so we're going to jump. Is that correct, Mr. Lemon? Standing, okay. Item 8.01, board members' points of information. Anybody? It's yours. Oh, Ms. Trehauser.
I just want to say happy belated Veterans Day to all our veterans, including Mr. Lemon. And also, I know we are away, like just a few days away from our Thanksgiving break, and I know everyone could use a nice family time break, so just wishing you all a safe and healthy, short break.
And Ms. Ewers.
I wanted to first thank our school psychologists. I'm glad that we're bringing that up. There was a time in my life where I was grateful to have them in my life and to help recenter me back into education from things that were going on in my personal life. And I would like to comment that I had a privileged life. So it's not necessarily kids. I believe at certain points in our lives, and we just don't know when it's going to happen, that having a school psychologist around and the fact that our district and our board promotes that and promotes healthy students in all ways, I just want to say I'm grateful. I would like to thank people for voting and for supporting our bond. It allows us to continue to improve our communities and offer services to our students and keep our kids safe. And with the support that we've had, I just want to thank all the voters for making that happen. There's a lot of school plays and concerts and things going on, and I'd like to take a moment to recognize the teachers and the staff and the custodian staffs who participate in those. That is not something that's just written in the job description. It is something that they choose to do. And it makes the holidays brighter, and we're back doing it. And I've just loved seeing the invitations that I'm getting, and I'm excited to go see some of these things. And I just want to thank the people that make it happen. It's a small feat to get middle school and elementary school kids together on a stage, much less put on a production. We have Thanksgiving coming up, and I want to reiterate, I was reading an article today that talked about the leading cause of death for our children used to be drowning, and it was over the holidays was a big, big time, and it was because people were partying with families and there weren't necessarily gates around pools. And because it wasn't hot out, they weren't necessarily remembering that it was still something of danger. And so I'd just like to remind people that watch your kids around water and talk to them, of course, about fentanyl and drugs, because now that death toll has surpassed drowning. And again, I'd just like to thank our custodians. I was walking through the school the other day after Kids Zone, and I looked around and I thought, bless these people for all that they do and how immaculate our schools look and what a beating that our schools take during the day. And when you go in the next morning, it's like elves came in and fixed it, and there are elves. So I just want to say thank you to them. And lastly, as we're coming to the end of the year, I think it's really important to recognize this board. You know, we've had some time to reflect in the last couple of weeks over the election process with friends and family, and I kept reiterating that I am so proud and lucky to be on a board that has high respect for each other, and we all have our strengths. And today was a good example that by using our time to discuss, we were able to listen to each other, and there were points that came up that none of us had thought about, and we respected each other for giving those points. And that is what democracy is about, and that is what having a board that's functional is about. And I don't know that it goes recognized enough, and so I want to let you all know that I recognize it, and I'm grateful to be on this board with you. So thank you for taking care of our kids and making it first, and I just want to reiterate that on this Thanksgiving Day, that that's what I'm grateful for.
Thank you, Ms. Ewers. Mr. Lemon?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to point out that this weekend, the Tempe Historic History Museum will unveil a new exhibit, Guadalupe, where three cultures flourish. And I think it's at 2 p.m. Saturday. And there's going to have mariachi music, dancers, traditional food, and a special blessing for the occasion. So it's free. So it's a good date. Buy her, a burrito or something, or something else. I don't know, a churro perhaps, whatever. It's going to be food, but it's good. So for the folks that know about Guadalupe, it's one of the gems that we have here in Arizona, where these three cultures that are blended together. And of course, we do at our schools as well, and appreciate the dancing as well as the mariachi music. And it isn't just at Guadalupe, at Frank's school, but it's in several of our schools. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Lemon. Just a couple of things from me. First of all, I want to express my deep gratitude for the voters in Tempe, our community. I truly appreciate that I was not at one point fearful that there wouldn't be support for us on the bond election, and I'm truly grateful that we live in a community that is 100% supportive of our school system. And I want to also thank everybody who makes the system run, from the board to all of the employees and all the parents that are involved and all the students who show up for school every day. I'm grateful to be a part of such a wonderful just act of humanity to educate our future and to be invested in what we hope we all can become. Item 9.01, announcements and upcoming events. The Thanksgiving holiday will be Wednesday, November 23rd through Friday, November 25th. All schools and district offices will be closed. There will be an agenda committee meeting on Wednesday, November 30th at 11:30 a.m. The 24th annual State of the City address will be on Friday, December 2nd at 7:30 a.m. at the Phoenix Marriott Resort Tempe at the Buttes. The Thai Foundation annual pancake breakfast will be held Saturday, December 3rd from 7 a.m. at 2 noon at McCamey Academy of International Studies. There will be an executive session on Wednesday, December 7th at 5:30 p.m. and a regularly scheduled governing board meeting at 7 p.m. The ASBA 65th Annual Conference will be held December 14th through the 16th at the JW Marriott Desert Ridge Resort. The Tempe Elementary Love Your Heart 5K, sponsored by TEEA, will be Saturday, February 18th at 8 a.m. at Kiwanis Park. Review of board calendar. Does anybody want to speak about which ones they plan on attending? I know I will be, my family will be at the Love Your Heart 5K.
Madam President, I'll be at the State of the City I'll be at the pancake breakfast, because that is the best deal in town. If anybody even goes to IHOP or Denny's that day, you're missing out, because it's all you can eat pancakes. I will be at the ASBA conference. And I will be at the 5K.
Mr. Morales?
Yes, I was telling Heather earlier that I'm trying to get buff. So now that I have a lot of free time, so I'm gonna try to complete the 5K. That's the goal this time. But that means I might not make the pancake breakfast. But I'm definitely going to the State of the City and the ASBA conference. But I might be able to control myself at the pancake breakfast. I asked Heather about volunteering instead of just going to eat, so that might be the plan.
Mr. Lemon, you wanting to, okay, sorry. Okay. Item, Mr. Hill, sorry.
Yeah, I will be able to obviously attend the ASB annual conference.
We figured.
And then I would love to attend the pancake breakfast, but I don't think I'll be able to make it that day. I'll be at the State of the City, and you can tentatively put me for the 5K. Since I haven't checked my calendar, but.
Okay. And I neglected to say, my family will also be at the pancake breakfast, and I will be, they'll stay home, but for the ASBA conference, I'll be there. Item 10.01, meeting adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Ewers and seconded by Ms. Trejo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.